If you knew that you only had a few days to live, what would you want to tell the people that you love the most? That's what we get to hear as we look at David's last words. He knows that his life is coming to an end, and a life that is classified as a man after God's own heart had many opportunities, a lot of things that he could share. What would be the one thing that you think David would share? Stay tuned. We're going to talk about that today. Summer is quickly coming to a close. We've turned the calendar to August, and I want to let you know that one of our big summer events, if you hadn't heard yet, was postponed. And for some of you, that's great news, because maybe you couldn't make it to our baptism event last weekend. We have postponed that baptism event to August the 29th, and so you can RSVP on the website. And it's not too late to let us know if you want to get baptized on the 29th. Thank you for all of you who contributed to our school supply drive. We had 140 or so backpacks filled with school supplies for kids who maybe couldn't afford to buy their own stuff. Think of how they're going to feel going into school on the first day. We're supporting kids at the Community Center in Westminster, the Transformation Center in Baltimore, Appy Time in both Carroll County and Baltimore County and Baltimore City. So many kids blessed because of your faithfulness. Thank you. Check out our campus events pages as there are different events at different campuses coming up in the next couple of weeks. We would love for you to be a part of it. Thanks for being a part of the life of Crossroads.
They say this mountain can't be moved. They say these chains will never break. But they don't know you like we do. There is power in your name. We've heard that there is no way through. We've heard the tides will never change. They haven't seen what you can do. There is power in your name. So much power in your name. Move the immovable, break the unbreakable. God, we believe.
every week as we gather together as Crossroads, a part of our worship is to give back. In generosity, we give back to God, and we trust that our gifts will not only change us as we give them, but they will be used for God's glory here and around the world. There are a bunch of different ways to give. You can see that on the screen, and we invite you, whether you're a normal attender and you are away this week, or whether you're an online attender always, join us in this part of our worship as we give back to God. Hey everyone, welcome again to Crossroads Online. We are finishing up a series of messages that started all the way back at the beginning of the summer on the life of David. And today we're going to end that series and talk about the thing that David thought was important enough to be his last words. Think about that. Think about the weight of that. What did David think was the most important lesson he had learned through his whole life, the whole timeline that we've talked about? You've probably heard of famous last words. Well, we're going to talk about what his were. But what would yours be? Have you ever thought, if you had a limited amount of time left to live, which we all do, but we're hoping it's a long time, imagine yours was short. What would you want to say? And who would you want to say it to? I think that says a lot about who we are. Those choices reveal something about our lives, about our character, about our hearts. We know what David said, and I'm going to read it to you right now. David, at the end of his life, King David, said these words. 1 Chronicles 28. David summoned all the officials of Israel to the assembly at Jerusalem, the officers over the tribes, the commanders of the divisions in the service of the king, the commanders of thousands and the commanders of hundreds, and the officials in charge of the property and the livestock belonging to the king and to his sons, together with the palace officials, the warriors, and all of the brave fighting men. You know who that is? Everybody that mattered. The guest list in this famous last words of David were all the people who mattered to him, mattered to Israel, were important, had power. He invites them all. And what is he going to say? We'll pick it up in verse 8. So now, David says, I charge you in the sight of all Israel, of the assembly of the Lord, and in the hearing of our God, be careful to follow all the commands of the Lord, your God, that you may possess this good land and pass it on as an inheritance to your descendants forever. So there's first a general word of encouragement. From David's long journey with God, he gives these instructions to the people that matter, the people with power, the people that will carry on in his place after he's gone. He says, be careful. Be careful to follow the commands of God. But then he gets very personal. He doesn't stop with this sort of blanket information to a wide group of people. He narrows it down to one person, his son Solomon, who is going to take over after him. And he speaks these next few sentences directly to the person that's going to replace him, his son that's going to become king. And this is what he wants Solomon to know. Verse 9. And you, my son, Solomon, acknowledge the God of your father and serve him with wholehearted devotion and with a willing mind, for the Lord searches every heart and understands every desire and every thought. If you seek him, he will be found by you, but if you forsake him, he will reject you forever. Consider now, for the Lord has chosen you to build a house as the sanctuary. Be strong and do the work. So to a very specific audience, the audience of one, the audience of Solomon, his son, who will take his place as the next king, David has these last words. Know the Lord, serve him wholeheartedly, and seek him as long as he can be found. We'll come back to those, and I want to unpack them together because I think they are instructive and helpful and challenging maybe to us. But before we do that, I want to make sure to give the context in which David gave those words, because sometimes context, the setting, the circumstances make all the difference, right? If I say, man, that was really hard, and the setting is the end of a Ironman triathlon, that's one thing. If the setting was the end of a long grocery line at the Safeway, that it means those same words, wow, that was hard, mean very different things. So what's the setting? What's the context of David when he gives Solomon these words? Well, he tells us in verses 2 and 3. King David rose to his feet and said, listen to me, my fellow Israelites, my people. I had it in my heart to build a house as a place of rest for the ark of the covenant of the Lord, for the footstool of our God. And I made plans to build it. But God, verse 3, but God said to me, you are not to build a house for my name, because you are a warrior and you've shed blood. This is not the way that the story was supposed to end, at least not in the mind of David. Did you see where it said, I had decided in my heart that his dream was that he would be able to build a house for God. Of course, he knows that his life wasn't perfect. He's confessed, he's repented. My goodness, he's the one who prayed these words. God, create in me a clean heart. Renew a right spirit within me. And so in his heart, he imagined that with the last days of his life, the ultimate restoration would be to be able to provide God a house, a permanent house, a temple where people could come and worship him. I decided in my heart that I would build a house for God. And God said, nope, not going to happen. Do you feel that? I bet most of you do. David here, the setting in which he gives these last words is David coming to grips with the story that he would never have chosen. He's resigned to the fact that he can't do anything about it. And that makes a difference. Because I believe, we'll come back to this, that you and I know that feeling. And that therefore, these words, his last words to Solomon, to us, are that much more important for us to understand. So what does he say? Let's go back. Let's look at those amazing words that he shares. Know the Lord, serve the Lord, and seek the Lord. The first one, know the Lord. The word there is yada. and it's translated a lot of different ways. In the NIV that we just looked at, it said acknowledge the Lord. It's the same word. Sometimes it's translated know, sometimes it's translated acknowledge, pursue, understand. It's the word yada. And just like in English, the Hebrew word can have a spectrum of meanings. Think about it in English. When we say, do you know, let me give you an example. Do you know when the sunset is tonight? Well, that means one thing. Do you know how to get to Chipotle from here? That means another thing, because there are multiple ways to do it. Do you know the history of Crossroads? Do you know how to make guacamole? Those are all different aspects of knowing something. But then how about if I said this? Do you know Aaron Walton? Aaron's our executive pastor. Some of you do, some of you don't. Even the ones that would say yes, we have different degrees of knowing him. How about this one? Do you know your spouse? Maybe most famously, this word yada, every time I've ever heard somebody in church talk about it, they say it's the word that's used in Genesis when it says Adam yada Eve, and they had a son. That's very different than knowing how to get to Chipotle. So know the Lord skews all the way over to this very, very relational piece. And the first part of the instructions of David to Solomon and to us is this: know the Lord. And wrapped up in that encouragement is this truth, that knowing God is possible in this relational way. Not just knowing about God, but that knowing God in the relational sense is possible. And you know why? It's possible because God wants to be known. God is not playing hard to get. God is not aloof. God is pursuing and wants to be pursued his kids. He wants to be known. Think about the relational pictures from the Bible. King and servant, shepherd and sheep, father and child, husband and wife. And that's the picture when David says, know the Lord. That's what he means. That to be known, to know and to be known, to love and to receive love, that's what it means to know. And all of that is wrapped up in this question when somebody says, do you know the Lord? What a great question. Most people don't have any idea what is packed into that question. David, with only a few words left, in his last words to Solomon says, know the Lord. Know the Lord. And then he continues, serve. Serve him wholeheartedly. Notice the order. It is not serve God so that you will be accepted by God, earn status before God. It is know God, and then what should come out of that is a heart that is ready to serve. To serve. Motivation is a big deal here. The idea that as long as you do the right thing, it doesn't matter why you do it. That is not what David is talking about here. He's saying that if you get the knowing right, the serving is the inescapable outcome of knowing. So you can just do a test. If I know God, I will serve him. If I'm not serving him, maybe I don't know him. The idea that our motivation for the things that we do matters a lot to God. Think about it from a human perspective. If you do what I want you to do, there could be a whole lot of reasons why. Could be out of fear, could be out of ambition, or it could be because of our relationship. Those are the kind of motivations that David's talking about here. If you know the Lord, you will serve him. And serve him, it says, wholeheartedly. Wholeheartedly. That means there's not one part of my life where I serve God, and then in every other part I serve something else. That everything is spiritual. It's not my spiritual life and then the rest of my life. There is a whole person involved in this serving of God. So David, with his last words, says, know the Lord. He says, serve him wholeheartedly. And then lastly, he says this, seek him. Does this order seem out of place to you? Right? In our minds, often we would think, well, don't you have to seek before you know? And not in this way. And hear me out. It teaches a really important lesson that it is always God who initiates the relationship with his creation. In other words, if God wouldn't pursue us, we wouldn't even think of pursuing him. The fact that you're even drawn to God in any way is because of what he's done, not because of what you've done. So the fact that we can know God is because he wants to reveal himself to us. And then in this progression, David wants to communicate something that's incredibly important, that you never stop seeking God. God takes the first step and then gives us an opportunity to respond, and that never stops. The seeking of God. A.W. Tozer wrote a book called The Pursuit of God, and the whole book was about this sort of premise. He summarized it and said, to have found God and still to pursue him. That's the Christian life. To have found God because he wanted to be found and still to pursue him. Another way of saying it is those who have found God never stop seeking for him. And an unrelenting pursuit of God is what defines a Christian. There can be all sorts of other ways to say it, but maybe none as clear as this one. An unrelenting pursuit of God defines a Christian. Now, of course, we understand that the only reason that we can even imagine being in a relationship with him is because of the work of Jesus on the cross. David doesn't know that yet. We know that. We understand that when we seek him, it is through the finished work of Jesus on our behalf. But don't miss the power of defining our relationship with God directionally rather than transactionally. Do you see the difference? That to define our relationship with God directionally means just what Tozer said, that it is finding God and then continually pursuing God. Transactional is I have worked the deal with God so that I can get into heaven when I die, so that he gives blessings to me now. I do this and he does that. That is a distorted view of how the biblical narrative has, from Old Testament to New, portrayed this relationship with God. Literally, the word seek is to tread in Hebrew. Imagine going back to the same place over and over again, so much that you tread down the grass. You make a path. Practically, this word is often translated follow. Remember, follow me, Jesus said? It's sometimes translated pursue. But the idea is simply this, that we would continue to seek God. So, in his famous last words to his son Solomon, not to the crowd, but very personally to the one who would follow him. King David said these words, "Know the Lord, know him. Serve the Lord wholeheartedly as an overflow of your relationship with him. And finally, seek the Lord. Continue to seek him. Continue to pursue him. Continue, wear a path down to the feet of Jesus." Now, I don't know what those words sound like to you, but I want to bring you back to the context, because the context means everything. I asked and answered a question about you earlier. I'll remind you. The question was, can you feel that when God said to David, "Your dream of building me a house is not going to happen"? Can you feel that? And I answered it for you. I bet you can. And my answer comes just from my own experience. And so I want to say something before we're done here today to someone who has felt that, who has felt the gut punch of shattered dreams. That's what David was feeling. Maybe it was a dream of a family. Maybe it was a dream of a career. I don't know what it was. But I want to say, as David did, hear these words. The gut punch of shattered dreams does not cut you off from the loving presence of your God. Know him. Serve him wholeheartedly. And continue to seek him. I want to say something to someone who's had the wind knocked out of your sails from maybe news that you've received. Maybe it's medical news that wasn't what you had hoped. Maybe it's relational news. The marriage didn't make it. I don't know what it is. But if that's you, and the wind has just been knocked out of your sails, I want you to hear these words. Know the Lord. Love and be loved. Know and be known. Serve him. Serve him wholeheartedly. And don't stop seeking. Wear a path to the feet of Jesus. Maybe one more. I want to talk to someone who just feels numb from current circumstances that have gone on way longer than you imagined that they would. And I want to use the last words of David to bring you hope. I sent a note to some of our pastors this past week, quoting a guy that I follow online. And this is what the quote said. One of the most important leadership skills is helping people hold both reality and hope together. Reality and hope. If you're the one just feeling numb, know the Lord. You can know him. Serve him wholeheartedly. Continue to seek him. You know the thing that felt like the gut punch to David? It was, you can't do this thing you dreamed of because you have shed blood, because you are a warrior. What David didn't know, but what you and I know, is that ultimately it would take someone who would shed his own blood for us to be invited into God's kingdom. So wherever you are today, as you hear these last words of David, I encourage you, don't turn to the right or the left. Know the Lord. Know him relationally. Serve him wholeheartedly. And seek him continually. Let me pray. Father, thank you. Thanks for the ways that you reveal your plan and your heart to us through people like David. And thank you for the work of your Son, the one who shed his blood for us. I pray you'd speak to our hearts. You would give us hope in the midst of whatever reality we are dealing with today. And we pray it in Jesus' name. Amen.